Then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. Then there will be a fourth kingdom as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things. Like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces. And that you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it will be a divided. Will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay. And he goes on and he finishes this, and it says, verse 44, in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. And that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crush and put to an end all those kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. You saw this, and he says that in verse 45, so the dream is true and its interpretation is trustworthy. Now here, I just got to believe that Nebuchadnezzar's mouth has just dropped open. Every detail that Daniel gave is what happened in my dream. So King Nebuchadnezzar falls on his face and did homage to Daniel and gave orders to present him an offering and fragrant incense. The king answered Daniel and said, surely your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, since you have been able to reveal this mystery. And the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over all the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel made request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the administration of the provinces of Babylon, while Daniel was at the king's court. Now, as far as this dream is concerned, I don't know why I put that back up there. Now I can't see it yet. It's nervous habit, I guess. How do you think all those other wise men and conjurers and astrologers reacted when Daniel did this? Perhaps, I hadn't thought of that one. Boy, we're losers. We can't do it, but Daniel could. What else do you think might have happened? Jealousy. That's certainly reflected later on. That's my first thought. That Daniel, what a wise guy. He came up with that interpretation. Well, what should their reaction have been? Thanks, Daniel. You just saved my skin. You just saved my life. But as we look at Daniel's career, and as the book progresses, his godliness makes people angry. So they're jealous of him. I don't know if that's the case this early in his career or not, but you got to expect, you got a guy here that's probably under 20 years old, and you've got all these ancient guys running around that have been doing this all their life, and his kid, his upstart, is the one who shows him up. I got to believe that there was probably some jealousy and some anger and some resentment. But anyway.
He's challenging the beliefs too.
Sure.
So even though they're faced with facts,
Right.
it's not what we want. It's not what we believe, and we're not going to let those facts get away.
Yeah, and what you just said, I think, is an important. People are oftentimes driven by ideology, not facts. People will believe what they're told to believe by the people, and then this is not just true of Marxists, but there's a lot of people. But Marxism and Nazism are particularly true in this regard. That you can believe a contradiction if that's what the party tells you to do. So here they have this situation where, all right, our worldview says this, but we can't do it until we know what the dream is. But Daniel comes along and says, no, there's a God in heaven who can reveal dreams. He's not your pagan magic. He's not all these phony gods. He is the true God, the God of heaven. And it shatters their worldview. And that's oftentimes what happens, is that people will be upset with you because you undercut their entire way of thinking. And now they're out of favor with Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel, this very young man, apparently he's still very young, has now risen up to the top. I've been doing this for 40 years, and this guy got the promotion. Well, that's because he's smarter than you are. And he knows what he's doing. And because God, in his sovereignty, opened his eyes that he might see, and he's elevated him. God sets up kings and deposes kings at his will. And we'll see that as we, actually Yeah. Matter of fact, go back to chapter 2. After Daniel receives the interpretation of the dream, Daniel said, "Let the name of God be blessed forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him." Verse 21, it is he who changes the times and the epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and power. Even now you have made known to me what we requested of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. So Daniel didn't say, "Yeah, let me tell you how I became the smartest guy in the world." That's not his attitude. His attitude is, as God receives all the glory, he deserves all the praise, because he's the one who revealed this to me. It's not about Daniel. It's about Yahweh. So anyway, without looking at chapter 3, what does Nebuchadnezzar do? Well, that's the next. Yeah, that's what happens next. But what does he do as far as the vision? He had a dream about a statue. What does he do regarding the statue? He makes a statue. And is it made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and iron mixed with clay? No, the entire thing is gold. What do you think Nebuchadnezzar is saying by that? Yeah, exactly. I'm not just the head of gold. I am gold. I am the man. I'm going to be here forever. Nobody's going to overthrow me. The entire statue is gold. This is, I think, a reference to his pride and arrogance, which, as the book goes on, it comes to a culmination in chapter 4. We probably won't get to that today. Perhaps we will. But he makes this statue completely of gold, and it probably wasn't solid gold. It had to have been pretty big, because it could have, of course, been way up on a pedestal so that people for acres could, all come together and bow down before it. But gold, I don't know the exact consistency of it, but you can take a very small piece of gold and pound it out so thin that it can cover many, many square feet. And it's probably gold plated, but still the idea is this, the symbolism is, I'm not just the head of gold. I am a man of gold. My kingdom's going to last forever. I'm just nothing. I'm a man filled with splendor and glory. So anyway, what do we have? You know the story. We won't necessarily go into all of the details of the story, but I do kind of get a kick out of some of this, though, the way it's done, the way it's written. Therefore, they were supposed to all fall down and worship the statue and bow before this statue, which, of course, is a way of honoring Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, everybody, groove on me. It's Nebuchadnezzar time. And so they all do it, except for 3 people. But I get it. It's a question that has arisen. Where's Daniel in all this? Because Daniel's not mentioned in this story. Could very well be. Who knows? We don't know, so you can't say, well, Daniel must have bowed to the statue. We're not told one way or the other. I'm sure he did not. It's very possible that he was away on king's business or something like that. He wasn't even here when this happened. But it is interesting to conjecture, where's Daniel? Well, the story's not about Daniel. That's why he's not mentioned. But that doesn't mean he did something bad or he did something ungodly. It just means that he wasn't there, didn't participate. Well, anyway, I just get a kick out of this. It says, then verse 4, then the herald loudly proclaimed, to you and the command is given, O peoples, nations, and men of every language, at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, trigon, psaltery, bagpipe, and all kinds of music, you're to fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And then, for this reason, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward, this is verse 8, brought charges against the Jews, that is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They responded and said to Nebuchadnezzar the king, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, trigon, psaltery, and bagpipe, and all kinds of music is to fall down and worship the golden image. If not, they're going to be thrown into the fiery furnace. So it's kind of funny that they repeat this word for word. Didn't you, instead of just saying, didn't you say that if they don't bow down to the statue, they're going to die? And he repeats every one of the musical instruments. Then it goes on. Verse 15. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar says, I'm going to give you a second chance, guys. Now, if you're ready at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, trigon, psaltery, bagpipe, and all kinds of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, very well. But if you don't, well, it's off with your head. Right? Well, they disobey. And it's interesting. Now, look at this resolve, though. I like this. Verse 16 through 18. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer concerning this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But even if he does not, let it be known, O king, that we are not going to serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Our God can save us if he wants to. But we're not bowing to your he doesn't. And I don't think they're being belligerent here. When they say we don't have to give you an answer, I think I would guess what they're saying is you know our thoughts on these things already. You understand why we're not going to. There's no reason for us to elaborate because you're already aware of our principles. Well, he flies into a rage, of course, because that's what kings did. Kings flew into rages because they had got their way. I mean, if you're king, it becomes very easy to become petulant and, just like the Queen of Hearts, off with their heads. Anyway, so the king's astounded. He stands up in haste. Make this thing hot. You fire up the furnace. So they throw him in, and lo and behold, what happens? Didn't I throw 3 guys in there? Yeah. How come there's 4 now? Who do you think the 4th person is? Yeah, we're not told more specifically. Jesus. Now, we're not told specifically. But I mean, that seems like, to me, the most reasonable interpretation. I mean, it could have been some sort of a guardian angel like Michael or Gabriel or somebody like that. But when he says, look at this individual, he's like one of the gods. I see 4 loosed and walking, verse 25 says, and the appearance of the 4th is like one of the gods. Now, of course, in his way of thinking, a mighty angel would have looked like one of the gods as well. But I have no problem. And again, we don't know. We're not told specifically, but that's who I think it is. I think it's Jesus. I think it's a pre-incarnate. You can't say it's Jesus because Jesus is the God-man born to the Virgin Mary. But you can say it as a pre-incarnate logos, right? It's the Word. So, for want of a better term or, just for simplicity, you could say it's Jesus. That's who I think it is. Any questions or comments over any of this? What would you do if somebody threatened to throw you into a fiery furnace? Oh, I would do it. I'd go into that fiery furnace. Okay, let's go one step further. What would you do if they threatened to throw your children into the fiery furnace? Or your grandchildren? And that makes it even tougher, doesn't it? I might go ahead and say that. I might say this during my sermon as well. But Polycarp, who was Bishop of Smyrna back in 200s, he was burned at the stake because he was a Christian. He refused to recant his faith. They gave him several opportunities. And he was a cheeky old feller. He was 86 years old. And when he was threatened, they said, we're going to burn you at the stake if you don't recant. And Polycarp said, you threaten me with a fire that lasts a little time, and you're not worried about I'm telling you about the fire that lasts forever. You better repent, right? Well, he goes to the stake to be burned. And they tie him up there. Before they tie him up, they bring him out. They're going to tie him to the stake, and everybody in the crowd that's watching yells out, away with the atheists. Away with the atheist, away with the atheist. They're all yelling at him because he doesn't worship the Roman gods, therefore he must be an atheist. So he goes like this, away with the atheists. The guy had some nerve. But he was burned at the stake for his faith. That's rough. So what would you do? It's one of those things we have to think about. Daniel reminds us that those are the things that are very, very possible for the people of God. And we need to pray to God every day. I'll say this in my sermon later, but we need to pray to the Lord every day. Give me the strength to not back down. Because we're called to put Jesus first, regardless of the cost. Any questions or comments over any of that? All right. Well, we'll go ahead and finish up here then and get started worship.